It Gets Real with Carenna. Each week, Carenna will discuss serious topics and is not shy to tell you how it is. On her show, she covers day-to-day situations and provides her opinion along with feedback from her listeners.
Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of It Gets Real with Carenna. If you're new here, welcome. This is the place where we get real, we get honest, and we talk about the things that sometimes don't get talked about out loud. And today, I want to have a conversation with you about something that I have personally been thinking about a lot lately, and that is the discipline to become her. Not the woman you post about becoming, not the woman you say you're becoming, not the woman you hope you're becoming, but the woman you actually have to discipline yourself to become. Because I think sometimes we spend so much time praying for the life we want that we don't stop and ask ourselves, am I becoming the person who can actually handle the life I'm praying for? Woo! Because that's a different question. And honestly, I had to ask myself that question. Am I becoming her? The woman I keep saying I want to be. The woman who is financially responsible. The woman who has discipline. The woman who has boundaries. The woman who takes care of herself. The woman who has a strong relationship with God. The woman who is intentional with her children. The woman who doesn't allow loneliness to make decisions for her. The woman who doesn't run back to things simply because they're familiar. The woman who can sit in discomfort and not immediately try to escape. Am I becoming her? And I think a lot of us want the transformation, but we don't always want the process that produces the transformation. We want the healed version. We want the peaceful version. We want the financially stable version. We want the confident version. We want the woman who walks into a room and knows exactly who she is. But becoming that woman requires us to do things differently. And sometimes doing things differently is uncomfortable. Sometimes it's boring. Sometimes it's lonely. Sometimes it requires you to tell yourself no. And sometimes you have to disappoint the old version of yourself. And I want to start there because I think there's a version of you that you're going to have to disappoint in order to become who you're supposed to be. The version of you that wants instant gratification. The version that wants to respond when you're angry. The version that wants to spend the money because you had a hard week. The version that wants to go back because you're lonely. I remember that version. The version that wants validation. The version that wants to be rescued. The version that wants to stay comfortable. And you have to be able to say, I understand why you want that, but we're not doing that anymore. That's real discipline. And discipline isn't always this big dramatic thing. Sometimes discipline is extremely ordinary. It's getting up when you don't feel like getting up. It's saving money when you want to spend it. It's drinking your water, something I still struggle with. It's taking care of your body. It's praying when you don't feel spiritual. It's turning your phone off. It's going to bed instead of staying up, entertaining people who aren't adding anything to your life. It's saying no. It's keeping your word to yourself. And I think that last one is huge. Keeping your word to yourself. Because how can you build confidence when you constantly make promises to yourself and then break them? Think about it. You say, I'm going to start Monday. Monday comes. You don't. Then you say, okay, next Monday. And eventually, You stop trusting yourself. You say, I'm going to save, and then you spend it. You say, I'm not going back to that person, and then you're back. I'm talking to myself right there. I've done that plenty of times. You say, I'm going to take care of myself, and then everybody else's needs come before yours. You say, I'm going to get closer to God, and then everything else gets your attention. And eventually, you start believing maybe I'm just not disciplined. No, maybe you haven't learned how to practice discipline yet. And that's different because discipline is a muscle. You build it, you practice it, you strengthen it. You don't have to become a completely different person overnight. You just have to start making different decisions, one decision at a time. Let's talk about God because for me, this season has made me realize that I don't just want to ask God for things. I want to know Him. I want intimacy with God. And there's a difference between knowing about God and actually having a relationship with Him. Because sometimes we want God to give us direction, but we don't want to slow down long enough to listen. We want God to bless us, but we don't want to obey Him. We want God to remove people, but we don't want to release them. We want God to change our circumstances, but we don't want Him to change us. And sometimes the prayer isn't, God, change this situation. Sometimes the prayer needs to be, God, change me while I'm in this situation. Because maybe the situation is teaching you something. Maybe the waiting is teaching you patience. Maybe the loneliness is teaching you how to enjoy your own company. Maybe the closed door is teaching you that rejection isn't always rejection. Maybe God is protecting you for something you don't have the capacity to see yet. And that's hard because we want answers. We want timelines. We want explanations. We want all of this greatness. But faith sometimes means saying, God, I don't understand what you're doing, but I'm going to trust you anyway. And that takes discipline too. The discipline to pray, the discipline to wait, the discipline to obey, the discipline to stop forcing things God is asking you to release. And I'm learning that. I'm not perfect at all, but I'm learning. Now let's talk about money because whew, financial discipline is a different kind of healing, especially when you've had seasons where money didn't stay in your hands. I've had a lot of seasons like that, y'all. I used to be a lottery addict. Yes, a real life gambling addict. It used to be bad. But thank God I have passed that stage in my life. And I learned that you don't have to chase money. When you give it to God, you let go, money will chase you down. I know I'm not the only one who made bad decisions with money, especially the decisions that you're not proud of. I know you had moments where you look back and say, what was I thinking? But here's what I've learned: shame doesn't fix your finances, discipline does. You can regret what you did with your money without allowing your past to determine your future. And sometimes becoming her means learning how to say, I don't need to buy this. I don't need to impress anybody. I don't need to spend money because I'm bored. I don't need to spend money because I'm sad. I don't need to spend money because I had a bad day. I can feel an emotion without making a financial decision based on that emotion. Now, that's growth. And maybe you don't have a lot of money right now, and that's okay. You can still practice discipline with what you have because stewardship isn't about how much you have, it's about what you do with what you've been given. And I want to be the woman who can look at her finances and know where her money is going. I want to be the woman who can provide for her children and feel proud of how she's managing what God has placed in her hands. I want to be able to say, I don't have everything I want, but I'm taking care of what I have. That's becoming her. And then there's motherhood. Being a mother has taught me that my children are watching me, not just when I'm doing something impressive. They're watching me when I'm frustrated. They're watching me when I'm disappointed. They're watching how I handle money. They're watching how I treat people. They're watching how I treat myself. They're watching how I respond when life doesn't go my way. And I don't want my children to just hear me tell them to have boundaries. I want them to see me have boundaries. I don't want to just tell them to love themselves. I want them to see me loving myself. I don't want to tell them that God is important. I want them to see me making God important. I don't want them to grow up thinking that being a strong woman means doing everything alone. I want them to understand that being strong also means knowing when to ask for help. And that's another reason why I'm so serious about becoming her. Because I'm not just becoming her for me, I'm becoming her for the little girls watching me. And then there's health. And this one is personal. Because sometimes we wait until something happens to us before we realize how important our bodies are. We treat our bodies like they'll always be there. We say, we'll take care of ourselves later. We'll eat better later. We'll exercise later. We'll rest later. We'll drink more water later. We'll deal with stress later. But later isn't guaranteed. And I'm learning that taking care of myself isn't selfish, it's responsibility. Because I want to be here. I want to be healthy. I want to have energy. I want to be present for my children. I want to enjoy my life. And becoming her means understanding that my body isn't something I should punish, it's something I should care for. I don't need to hate my body into changing. I can love myself enough to take care of myself. And there's a difference. Now, let's talk about relationships because this is where a lot of us lose our discipline. We could be disciplined at work, with our children, and with our money. And then somebody we have feelings for comes along. And suddenly, all the boundaries disappear. We start negotiating with ourselves. Maybe this time it'll be different. Maybe they changed. Maybe I'm being too hard. Maybe I should just give them another chance. And listen, I'm not saying people can't change. People can absolutely change. But you don't have to keep volunteering yourself to be hurt while you're waiting to see if someone changes. Becoming her means learning to pay attention to patterns, not just promises, actions, consistency, character. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is walk away. Not because you don't care, but because you finally care about yourself too. And let me say something that I think somebody needs to hear. Loneliness is not a reason to return to something God delivered you from. You can miss somebody and still know you shouldn't go back. You can love somebody and still know they are not good for you. You can have memories with somebody and still understand that the relationship has run its course. You could feel lonely without making loneliness your decision maker because loneliness is an emotion, it is not an instruction. Read that again in your spirit. Loneliness is an emotion, it is not an instruction. Let that sink in. I want you guys to understand that you're worthy. You're worth every single thing that you can possibly imagine. I never thought that I would be at the point that I'm currently at now. I never really thought that I would elevate as much as I've elevated so far. I've been through a great deal of things. I've been through life. I mean, who hasn't? And so many curve balls have come my way. I mean, one minute you're up, one minute you're down, one minute you're depressed, one minute you're excited, one minute your pockets are low, one minute they're high. And sometimes you don't know what the next journey will be like. But I can honestly say if you keep your eye on the prize, you stay dedicated to who you are as a person, you keep the faith and you keep trying, you won't fail. Nothing that you do will fall by the wayside. And it's not going to be an easy task to actually get to where you want to be. I'm not exactly where I want to be right now, but every day I keep striving for better. Every day I keep setting goals and I keep climbing the ladder. And guess what? You don't have to be perfect for anyone else but yourself, but God. And thankfully, we don't have to worry about how humans think of us. Because I know a lot of times, one of the major setbacks is that people are quick to judge you. They're quick to say, oh, you shouldn't do this, oh, you shouldn't do that. But I'm here to tell you that whatever you decide to do, and it's in alignment with what God says, then do it. There have been plenty of times where I've listened to other people and how they felt about my life, and I took heed of what they said, and I didn't do what I wanted to do. Don't let that be you. Whatever is on your heart, whatever you desire, whatever you feel like you want to touch, grab, be, do it. Because a lot of people will try to deter you from your God given purpose because they're afraid to do it. They're afraid to walk in who God has destined them to be. I don't want you to be that person. I don't want you to be afraid. I don't want you to miss the calling. I don't want you to miss the jump. I don't want you to miss the greatness that God has over your life. I need you to become her. God needs you to become her. Somebody out there needs you to become her. You know why? Because if you do not become her, there's going to be a little girl, a young lady, or somebody that's going to miss the mark because you didn't chase what God was telling you to chase. I know for sure that it is someone out there that needs to know what I've been through. I know it's somebody out there that needs to know my testimonies. I know it's somebody out there that needs to know your testimony. So I don't ever want you to think that whatever you've been through or whatever you're going through does not matter. It does. I hope whatever I said today touched you in some way. And if it did, I would love for you to share this podcast out to someone who may need it. Thanks so much for listening to It Gets Real with Carenna, where we get real, raw, and honest. And y'all know I ain't gonna hold back. I'll talk to you on the next one. Bye bye.